Jae-young Lee is a Korean fintech entrepreneur, founder of one of the largest cross-border payment startups, SentBe, headquartered in Seoul and Singapore. Today, we're very lucky to have you on, as I know personally that you usually shun media publicity. So really appreciate this rare chance to hear your stories and kind of take this masterclass on fintech, payments, and running a startup. I want to jump straight in, but to keep with the tradition, why don't you walk us through your background, growing up, as I know, in a lot of places as a third culture kid, until how did you find your passion in entrepreneurship and this chance to start something in the fintech landscape? Off to you.
All right. Yeah, thank you for inviting me. Yeah, as you said, I'm Jay. Well, Jae-young Lee, but called Jay often. Yeah. So when I was, sorry, what was the question? What the fuck? What was the question? You're gonna edit this part out, right? Yeah.
Walk us through your background.
My background.
Yeah.
All right. So my background that led to entrepreneurship, I think it's not a very straight, journey. So I kind of cut it to, like my youth before adulthood versus like after adulthood. So when I was young, my dad was a diplomat. Well, even when I was old, my dad was a diplomat. But anyway, my dad was a diplomat, so we moved all over the world. And basically, he helped me see the world, right? And kind of contrast to what other people think. There are clear pros and cons of a diplomat, third culture kid life. One is, as I said, that you see the world, you see the different cultures, different people, different businesses even, right? Versus like the cons would be there's no emotional stability, every 2-3 years, whether you're moving or your friend's moving. So that's kind of like the life I had. But I think at one point, I think the first stability I had was very ironically that I was playing basketball. I was, team captain, had a prom queen girlfriend, and then I was just partying in 9th grade.
Wait, hold on a second. I think every podcast guest that's come on the show so far has dated a prom queen. That's been a pattern. So
maybe
you're at the right place.
Is that the qualification?
Anyhow, where were you back then playing basketball?
That was in 9th grade. I was in Malaysia. I was in KL. So I did that, and then I was just partying. No offense, Malaysia. I love Malaysia, but they don't check IDs for these, foreigner kids, right?
So 9th grade Jay dating the prom queen, partying his life out.
Yeah, drinking vodka. I hope my parents don't watch this. Anyway, so I had, because of all that like nightlife, I just basically stopped growing. So as an athlete, I wanted to become a professional basketball player, but obviously you need to have some sort of physical talents, which I didn't because I stopped growing. So my parents just dragged me to Korea and told me to go to all guy, public high school to college, and that's the first. Like I lived in Korea for 15 years. That was the first time where I lived at one city for more than 3 years of my life.
How old were you back then?
So when I moved to Korea, I was 14, and then I left when I was 29. So
that was your first taste of stability.
Yeah, for sure.
Did you reconnect with your Korean identity? Because you don't come across as very Korean, as most people would observe.
I know what you mean. So yes and no, both. I don't know how to explain this very accurately, but so I have a lot of Korean, like pride in being a Korean, of ethnicity, of culture, whatever. But I don't like. I'm not culturally Korean, or in a sense, like my values in terms of professional values, or some of the diligence or all sorts of values like don't really mesh with me. I'm more about efficiency. I'm more about like my way kind of thing, or used to be anyway. But when I went to Korea, I actually realized that I am not culturally Korean. Like ironically, I that's what I felt more rather than reconnecting to my Korean identity. Reconnection to my Korean identity happens more outside of Korea, very ironically. So, but anyway, I reconnected with soju though. Yeah.
Okay, so what happened? I think you launched your startup in Korea, right? So take us from, I guess university to entrepreneurship. How did you pave that path for yourself?
Sure. So in high school, when I was selected, in Korea, you select the college, but you also select your major, really based on your score. So I wanted to apply for business administration because the general public said that it was the right path to doing your own business or going to Korean conglomerates or basically making a lot of money. And back then, I think I didn't really know what I wanted, so I just wanted financial freedom, and I thought that was the baseline for helping me have the freedom to do whatever I want. So I went to college in Korea to major in business, and then probably the biggest mistake of my life. I'm very regretful because Korean colleges are good for business in Korea, but not so much outside of Korea because of two things. One is connections, and two is Korean educational system doesn't help you how to or why you should think of, it doesn't help you think why.
Yeah.
It helps you think of how fast or how right kind of thing. So I think that was a little bit.
So you were an outlier, a bit frustrated with the educational system.
A little bit in hindsight, yeah. So, but anyway, so I was in college, and then doing all the college nightlife things, but also after I went to the army and came back, it's usually the path where you go to the army, you come back, and you're like, oh, you gotta wake the fuck up. So you start studying, getting better grades. But basically, after that, I think the kickstart was I did an internship at BCG in Boston Consulting Group, and it was a brutal project, 4 months. I think we were doing 6 days a week. I think 20 hours a day. So what's that? 100. I think it was at least 110 to 120 hours a day, a week. Brutal. And then the one day we get off is Saturday, which I play basketball with other consultants. And then after the 4 months, one of the basketball players in BCG, him and two others, they came out of BCG and started a mobile ad tech company. And they told me to come join them since consulting, they said, is useless. You got to do your own thing, and this is a good chance. So that was kind of my first experience with startups.
Did you work with them?
Yeah,
you took the offer. Yeah.
So I worked with them for about a year. It was that was the first time I did sales, and that was this is 2012. So mobile advertisements was super new.
Yeah.
Even more reward based mobile advertisements. So I was doing sales, and I learned a lot. The best thing I learned, I think, is that no matter what, if you knock on someone's door and say, "Do you have 10 minutes?" and and if whatever I say it doesn't make sense, just kick me out. But just give me 10 minutes. Just talk to me for 10 minutes. They will talk to you. Yeah. People are kind of just scared to have that initiative, but no matter what, anybody will give you 10 minutes. As long as you don't look like a murderer or a hobo.
So that your primary responsibility, was knocking on people's door, literally having these sales?
Yeah. So we were broken down into verticals. There, like this industry, that industry was based on the gaming industry. So the mobile games were 99% of the revenue. What I was in charge of was penetrating new markets to this reward-based mobile advertisement. Like fucking sell it, like where they don't know shit about this. Make them think about it. And the first one I did was a hospital. So they first.
Oh, so it was B2B or organizations. You're not knocking on random resident stores.
Oh no. Because advertisement, I'm selling advertisements to businesses. Right?
Okay.
Yeah. So customers are. So basically, what happens was back then, Android phone, Android was like 70% back then. The users would install the app, and if you install the app, the lock screen would show an advertisement. If you're interested, you slide right or left or whatever, and then if you're not interested, you just slide it away. And based on your slide direction, it gives you a reward, right? And it worked very well in the gaming industry because their KPI was installment, not about like how long it played or whatever. So as long as these users who are very sensitive to the rewards, they slide towards installing the game, then first the game like installments grow, so their valuation grows. And then the users, they get more incentive, and they just delete the game. So it was kind of like a win-win situation back then. Now the KPIs of games are completely different. But so back then, that's why it kind of started. But for me, they told me to start entire new packages. So one was hospitals, where I did like for LASIK, for plastic surgery.
You're selling ad spaces for them.
Yes.
You're asking them to buy the ad space on your mobile app.
Yep.
And the app is a game.
App is a lock screen. It takes over the lock screen.
Oh, it's a lock screen.
Yeah, lock screen reward-based mobile advertisement platform.
But why would people use your lock screen then?
Because they get rewards. So as
virtual
I said,
reward.
No, like actual money.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So like cents at a time. But if they, as in the example, if they swipe left and ignore the ad, they get like 5 cents. But if they swipe left and install the game, they get like $1, for example.
Got it. So the more they install, the more money they make.
Exactly.
Doesn't matter how short it takes for them to delete it after.
Exactly.
Okay. That was your first startup.
Experience.
No,
that was not my startup.
Yeah. And you were doing sales. How was your performance? Did you know you were good at that back then?
So this was like, if I think about it, it was exploitment. But the payments, the salary. This is a fucking exploit. I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry for my brothers, but so in a monthly basis, my base salary was right now equivalent to like $1,000.
Yeah.
Everything else is commission based.
Yeah.
So basically, for 3 months, I was just paid $1,000 a month because I don't know how to close a deal. I never closed a deal in my life because I don't even know what a deal is. So it's the first time I saw a contract. First time I started knocking, and then by the 4th month, I closed my first deal. And that at that point, there was another guy, a college, like I wasn't a college graduate yet, right? So I had 2 years left. There's another guy, same age, same, whatever, back from the army, whatever. And then this guy was from SNU, Seoul National, and this guy closed the deal, which is bigger than mine. So I was like, fuck this, I can't lose to this guy. And after that, I just like soared like crazy. So I started, with the help of one of the founders, he helped me like make a package. We called it Beauty Slide. So we put all the different hospitals, and then we started, ranking them based on their clicks, so that the better they perform, the higher they get up. And then It was just like one slide aggregator of all the different hospitals for plastic surgery, whatever. And then we made another one called Wedding Slide, so that their matchmaking industry in Korea is huge. So we brought all the matchmakers, and then we put it, Wedding Slide, and then wedding, what's it called? Wedding gowns, hair, everything. We put it in there to advertise.
So that was a hit, and
those are pretty big hits. And then after that, I was able to, with these with all these different experiences, I was able to kind of start approaching like PNG and things like that. So after I think 6 months, I was earning like 10K a month. And then I think right before I left, I earned like 20K, and then I left because it became too easy.
those were really good numbers for a student
Yeah, I was earning 20K a month
on commission. Yeah.
on commission. So, like I was balling, going to clubs, popping bottles. That's when it's happened, man. That's when it all started.
Yeah.
And then actually, I quit because it was no longer, I thought, intriguing to me, but also, so I had about maybe 50 grand in my pocket now, besides, like expenses.
Yeah.
And then I started playing poker with it. So I started playing poker. And then I thought, okay, this is my next chapter of my life. I want to play poker for life, for a few years. So I played poker for a few years. And at the same time, I went back to school, but barely. And then, so when I finished school, when I was about to graduate, I literally sat down, made a notepad saying, do I apply for a company, or should I just play poker professionally? Because by then I had 100, 200K in savings with poker from the 50K, right?
Were you playing offline?
Yeah, it's
Competition?
completely illegal offline houses in Korea. We call it houses, but underground poker places.
What was your secret sauce in playing poker?
Secret sauce, damn. I always say there are 3 parts. One is this is not objective, but you need to be able to read what the other person has, not by tells and shit like that, but more about their betting behavior or calling behavior. And that's why you have to bet the right amount to kind of find the patterns on what they have. Second, when you start to find out what other people's patterns, you need to maximize losses and maximize wins and minimize losses in each and every hand. It means you have to win the most with that, set of my hands and your hands, right? And we call it fold equity or win equity, right? Or we call it take you to value town, value city. And last but not least, I think this is the most important thing, is just fucking straight up discipline. Just discipline. You become emotional and you're just oh fuck, I want to catch this guy bluffing, but you gotta just discipline. The third one, more and more I played, I became worse and worse at. I used to have super good discipline, but back then I was pretty good. But today, if you play with me, I have no discipline.
Yeah, because your goal shifted to having fun more than making a living out of it. So you were playing poker, and then at the end you stopped.
Yeah, it was kind of I think I told you before some other time, but when I was in high school, I was thinking, should I become a philosopher? Because I was really into philosophy. So
What kind of philosophy?
Just general, all Asian, Western, everything.
Are you still into philosophy?
Not that much now, because I don't read anymore. But back then, I read every single philosophy book.
Yeah.
I was do I want to become a philosopher, or do I want to do business? as I said, like once you become a philosopher, once you do a business, you run your own business. Later on, you own your, you earn a good living, and then you can become a philosopher. But if you become a philosopher, you can never go to business. You can never earn a lot of, well, maybe you can, but very highly not likely, right? The same thing. Like if I continue and become a professional poker player, I can never go to a company. But if I go to a company, I can do poker anytime I want, right? So it was an easy choice. So I applied for a couple of companies, and I applied to 3 actually. And anyway, I got into this global sales program in SAP. Basically, SAP was is usually their sales people are all from experienced candidates, but for the first time in their life. It's pretty ironic. First time in their life, in the company life, they wanted to grow their own sales force from scratch, from fresh grad, right? So they recruited like, I think 100 to 150 people from all over the world, brought them all of them from, all over the world, like fucking Colombia, Brazil, Africa, South Africa, Malaysia, Korea, everywhere.
Yeah.
And then brought them to San Francisco and trained them. And they thought that would help retain all these talents. I think partially it did, but anyway, so I was part of that program. We went to San Francisco. We had a really good time. The training was fine, but training was okay. But it's more about like this cultural mix was more than like international school shit that like life that I had. This is like from 100 countries, all of them into this like one huge training campus. Everything happens like high school or college. It's like, there's drama, there are girls and guys, there are drunk people, there are people who like are nerds who like, do their homework and just go to sleep, everything. And then once we do that training in San Francisco and then we come back, I was in charge of sales to public sector of the SAP product. I don't know if you're familiar with SAP. SAP is like the biggest ERP software in the world.
Sure.
Oracle, right? Yeah, it's basically Oracle's a database, ERP is SAP.
Yeah.
So I come back to Korea and I'm doing sales, and it is the slowest sales cycle in the world. Probably not in the world, but so slow. Like we're talking about like 3 years, 5 years, even 10 years sales cycles.
Sales cycle means closing a deal?
Yeah, closing a deal, pumping them and stuff like that.
What's
so slow?
What's involved in the process in the sales cycle?
Because these are like millions of dollar deals. So let's say we're selling, I don't know, like this ERP software to Korean Gas. Like now we have to talk to these ajashis who are in Kogas. Kogas is, like a gas company, right? So their IT team are a bunch of ajashis who just wants to drink with us, with these youngsters like me, right? And they're long story put short, their contracts are like 10 years at a time, 5 years at a time. And then once they have like 3 years left, that's when they start like doing RFIs. So basically like RFIs and RFPs, it's just really slow. It's great industry though, great company. Anyway, so it was really slow. I was like, I was just really fed up with it. So I quit and then started my first business.
Okay.
This is 2014 or 15, I think. I can't remember. Something like that, in that transition. And this Nuna I knew from college. She's the same school, CPA, and we together started a cosmetics logistics company to sell it towards the Chinese tourists coming to Korea in Myeongdong. So, but it is an offline store. So we started. Basically, what happened was the real estate person The real estate guy, basically we were scammed regarding the real estate. So the guy ran. But anyway, so ultimately I put in, I think, like 100, 150. She put it in similar, and then we just at one point we wanted, if we pump in more cash, then we could have resurrected it and taken over the actual place, but we couldn't. So we're like, fuck this, let's do something else. So I think it took us like 6 months, and then we're done with it.
How exactly did the guy scam you? So was this the store you were renting, or you said logistics? So you were trading cosmetic products?
So no, it's not logistics. We're selling it. So
Okay.
basically, we're importing it. No, actually, no, we're not importing it. We're buying within the country and then selling
Yeah.
it to Chinese
Tourists
yeah,
from
tourists.
your offline store. And who's this guy, and what's the real estate?
I don't want to go too much in detail because it's like fucking headache. But basically, he was the person who was supposed to. So he is part of the owner's agent who was supposed to receive some money from the former tenant and then pass it on to us. And then that covered like renovation because like there were some damages. So we covered for moving in. Anyway, like some shit like that. And then basically we dropped about like 100K that he was supposed to cover, but he just flew with it.
Okay,
It was like
and
150. Yeah.
you just let it go, and
Yeah, we try to like, as I said, if we put more money in it, then we would have made it work. But by then the Chinese tourist cosmetics market was starting to get saturated.
Yeah.
But our grand plan was to do that for about a year and then move on to something else anyway, because we want to do like a clothing brand, a sports clothing brand. So we're just like, fuck it. But anyway, during that encounter, I didn't really have a fight with her, but I realized that our working style didn't really work. So at that point, I didn't really want to wager my professional legacy with her. So that's why I was just like, let's just let it go. So we just let it go. And then now I'm like, without my savings.
without your poker.
Without my poker savings, without a job, without a project that I just started. So I was just I was thinking, what should I do next? I think I took a 2-3 month break, and that's when my parents found out that I had quit SAP. They were like, "What the fuck?" And they found out in a very, very weird and bad way. So basically, they called me back to the house because I was outside. I was living by myself. They just called me back to the house and told me to find a job. Basically, I was just thinking, like, what's fun. And then I realized, like, what I realized in the cosmetics thing was that I didn't want to do Korean business. I wanted to do like international business. So remember the ad tech company? They were looking for someone in global expansion and strategy. So I joined there. I went back. By then they're like much larger company, much more well established, and they had expanded into China and the U.S. Now, U.S. not doing well. I think they closed down by now. China, one of their co-founders went to China, and he was like doing this business because he had lived in China for like 10 years. So I went there. I wanted to do the Southeast Asia part of their business. I thought it would be a really good match, this reward-based mobile ad platform. But they just didn't. They were uninterested in doing launching anywhere else. So I was there about like maybe 6 months, and I realized that they're not going to launch it anywhere else. They're not going to consider Southeast Asia. They just don't have the money. They just wanted to IPO. And they had like these, like, our team was 4 people, one from except for me, they were all from SNU. One guy's from BCG, one guy's from Goldman IBD, one guy's MSIBD, and I'm just a piece of shit, but they have these three guys, and like they want all these talent, but they don't know what to do with them because they're not expanding, they're not heavily investing. Come to think about it, it's a little bit tragic. Anyway, so I came out, and then I was referred to or recommended to this other startup called HyperConnect, which was servicing Azar, which is basically a video chatting Tinder.
How far is it until you founded SentBe?
What's the last one?
It's been
Is it too long?
quite longer than I thought, but yeah, quite fun.
You can edit your things.
No.
The
Go
video
on.
chatting Tinder, which was actually not ironically, it was sold to Match.com
Nice.
2 years ago for $2 billion. But
You could have stayed on.
I know, fuck,
Cash
right?
out.
Yeah, I was like the 8th employee. I left like 6 months later, but by then they had like 100, so they're growing crazy. But anyway, so this is where it starts. I was in HyperConnect, doing my thing, and then one of our co-founders, who his name is the name that you searched, Alex.
Yeah.
최성욱 Choi. He was a guy I knew in college, but we would always just randomly meet in clubs, and he would just buy me a tequila, and then that would be it. And this one day he just called me and he's like, let's have coffee. I'm like, what the fuck, coffee with you? What the fuck, is something going on? And so I went out, and then he was like, we're trying to do, we have an idea to, back then, this was what he said. We want to do a cross-border remittance platform based on cryptocurrency, based on Bitcoin. And we think that it's going to work. But we need partnerships all over the world, and I think that only you can do it. And without you, I don't think we can even start this company. So I was like, I'll think about it. And cross-border payments, I don't know shit. But
Bitcoin.
I knew back then. This is like 2015, right? So
How did you know about Bitcoin?
I very randomly encountered it in a class, management information systems. But anyway, they talked about like blockchain for some reason. And then I learned about cryptocurrency, and then I learned about, the Silk Road and shit.
Yeah.
The dark web.
So you met Alex in the club. It's just you partying together, then one day it's like, I want you as my business partner. Okay, so there's a point for going out drinking and clubbing.
So at that point, in the industry perspective, I didn't really care. But in a functional perspective, I wanted to do international business. I wanted to do like play a role that does all over the world, not just confined in one country, or especially not in Korea. And then I wanted to be the decision maker and the person who's responsible for those decisions. I didn't want to, abide by other people's decisions. I wanted to abide by mine, right? And like the business model is just like felt like it's gonna work. I lived abroad. I had to send money or receive money from my parents, things like that. So I knew there was a need, and like cryptocurrency, we made partnerships and flows that worked, and just we should have done it the opposite way. But anyway, I'll explain later. But anyway, it just seems like it was gonna work though. So the business model was gonna work. I really respected the two other founders, and then functionally and
Aligns with your
ownership-wise,
goals.
Yeah, it's just aligned. So I was like, all right, let's try this.
What was your first big responsibility after you joined?
To find a partner and launch. So day one, I come to the office. There's like, I think there were 3. Anyway, I would come to the office. There's no one there. So we're just like, I'm just like, okay, I'm just doing research, and I started like cold calling everyone. we had to launch Philippines, and then we're going to launch Indonesia, Vietnam.
That was the goal he set out for you.
No. We talked together. Philippines, we had a lead, so we had to close the deal. And then after Philippines, I thought it was going to be Vietnam, Indonesia, like these kind of countries that are going to work.
So by the time you joined, there was already a working product.
The working product wasn't working product. It was about to launch.
Okay, but you need the partner first before you launch the product. Okay.
So basically, what really happened was that they founded company in September, but in June or I think July-ish, right before they set up the company, they said, "Jay, come join us." And I said, "Okay, I'm in HyperConnect. If you guys are closer to a launch of a product, then I'll like officially join you, and before that I'll just help you." So I was helping them with the partnerships before they were able to launch, and then I joined them, and then in I think 2 months later we launched Korea to Philippines first.
That was your first big cross-border expansion.
That wasn't expansion, that was a launch. Yeah, that was the first product one.
Okay.
That was the first product.
How many products are there now? Partnerships or
so we call from a payments perspective, there's a collection aspect, a conversion of currencies, and then the settlement of those said converted currencies, and then payout. So when we first started as a collection or send country, we only started in Korea. And then we were able to pay out starting from Philippines, and then we expanded from Korea to Indonesia, Vietnam, US, so we were expanding more on the payout countries. And then now we have a C2C product, a B2B product with send countries from Korea, Singapore, Indonesia, soon in the US, partially Vietnam. And then for payout, we can pay out all over the world.
So in launching these countries as partners, if connecting back to your first sales role, like knocking on doors, selling the ad space, how similar or how different are they? And you've learned a lot of things about sales over the years, right? And when it comes to a real business launching a fintech product, what did you do exactly? Let's start there. What did you have to do? What does it mean to launch in a foreign country? Like if you have to break down overseas expansion, explain it to a 5-year-old, what does it mean?
Overseas expansion or partnership is a little bit different. But
Okay.
I'll start with the easy thing first about what you just asked. So let's say we were, this is a true story. We were trying to launch from Korea to Indonesia.
Yeah.
So what we want is, so we have, we got Indonesian customers in Korea who want to send from Korea to Indonesia, and they want to pay out to their own bank account or, whatever, right? So we collect all the KRW that needs to be converted and paid out into Indonesia, right? So what we need is someone who receives our bulk funds. Okay, this is not easy. Okay, rewind. What we need is a partner, like a bank, who would collaborate with us. We send them instructions like, "Oh, can you please send 1,000 worth of IDR to A and 1,000 worth of IDR to B," and then they would process those transactions, right? And then we will give them a fee for it, like I don't know, $1, 50 cents, whatever. So we need these like payout partners, local payout partners who are connected to the local banking system, infrastructure, whatever. And kind of relating to what you said, this is if you can see, like these payouts we are the buy side. We buy their service, right? Because we pay them commission. So this is like 1,000 times easier than what I did in the advertisements, where I need to sell my product, right? I need to sell my advertisement because they have to buy it. So I gotta take money out of their pocket. But now I'm buying from them. So it's much easier. So if I go to Indonesia with my product that had just launched like 3 months ago, I went to Jakarta. I talked to BRI, I talked to Mandiri, BNI, BCA, all of them. They talk to me because I'm the buy side. Doesn't matter how small I am. I said 10 minutes. Even on the sell side, you can get 10 minutes. Buy side, of course. So that's how I kind of like talk to all the different local banks and stuff, and then started expanding the payout countries.
How do you initiate the contact at first? Because you don't know anybody who's from the bank locally. Like, I guess you cold call.
Cold call, LinkedIn. You have to find the right person, right? So someone in remittance, remittance sales, FX sales. You ask them like, okay, I'm a Korean remittance company. We have like 10,000 people, 20,000 people who want to send to Indonesia, but like, let's make this work. And they're like, who's the right person? Connect me to the right person. I don't know your name. I can't even pronounce it. I didn't say that, but and then they connect me to the right person. I go there, and then we just start off the conversation and drink with them.
But they're Muslims usually. If they're Muslim, they don't drink. But anyways,
Yeah.
so that's how you penetrate a new partner. But when it comes to the next step, like you say, okay, you agree, then what's the next step?
Oh,
Kind of understand what each other wants and needs, and
Yep.
you see opportunity. What do you do next?
So as a financial institution, you have to onboard them with like AML, AML policies, reviewing that kind of shit. Shareholders. Whether there are any ultimate beneficiaries, whether who's on the sanction list, that kind of screening. After that, you agree on the commercials, the fees. Then you basically, in this case, we would integrate their API because we have to send them instructions. So we send them instructions, and then based on those instructions, they will pay out to the beneficiaries. So we integrate their API. And then based on the API, we reflect it into our front-end product. And then we will set the rail for being the ability to fund them in a treasury perspective. And then we launch.
And what is the last thing you said about the rail from the funding perspective? That just means you can transfer money to them?
Yeah, just international SWIFT money. So like,
Okay.
I know we didn't touch this, but basically, if we have 1,000 people wanting to send $1,000 each, that's $1 million, right?
Yeah.
So what we would do is we won't send them 1,000 transactions each with $1,000, 1,000 transactions, but we would bulk send that $1 million to our partner. That's how we save costs. So,
assuming you have that volume at first, because you want to ensure the speed of transactions, right? If you have to wait for a day to accumulate the amount of volume, you might get dissatisfied customers.
yes. So okay. Kind of jumping into this topic already, but
Yeah.
okay. So what we call it is what you just mentioned is pooling.
Yeah.
So what we're doing is it's kind of like for people who are not familiar with pooling, it's basically if you grab 100 of your friends, that's too much. 10 of your friends to buy a Nike ball, you can get it cheaper than buying it by yourself, right? Because of scalability.
Yeah.
Or economy of scale. So what we would do is we would pool these 1,000 transactions into one transaction and then send that through one bulk from us to our partner, and then they pay out as a local. Then this international transfer, which is the most costly,
Yeah.
the fees involved in that transaction can be divided into 1,000
Yeah.
because we have 1,000 transactions, right?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah.
So that's pooling.
Yeah.
Now, as you said, if we pool, then we gotta wait for 1,000 transactions to accumulate before we transfer this $1 million, right? So what we do is we project how much transactions we're gonna get tomorrow, and then we send them before yesterday, so that we can facilitate for the transactions happening today.
And
Conceptually.
just on the payment terms, in a way, working capital is it
It's
your
ours.
okay? So you have to pay upfront to the
Yeah.
partners.
And this is called pre-funding. Market practice is pre-funding, yes. Pre-funding means I use my liquidity. The sender uses the sender liquidity to pre-fund the pooling liquidity.
Is it always that way? Does it matter the size of the sending and receiving institution? Can you ask the banks to use their working capital to pre-fund first?
Of course, it really depends on the contract, the relationship. We have a lot of partners who give us credit lines.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it seems like the secret sauce here, the technology, is the ability to predict the volume and the customer traffic is coming.
Yes. I think that is the next big thing, but we're still working on it.
Okay. So then what's you would say the most critical technology of your type of startup?
Critical technology. Ultimately, I think there are 3 layers to it. What you said is the second step. So basically, the first step is we have more than 100, probably more than 200 partners connected to our system, right? So when we receive a transaction request, we want this transaction to go to the most optimized partner and channel. We call it country, channel, and partner. We want it to go through the most optimized routes depending on our funding, circumstances and things like that, so that that transaction is just like optimized as much as possible. So I think that's step 1. And then step 2, if you're optimize the product itself, then you'll be able to in a projection perspective, you want to project how much how you can optimize your liquidity, right? Because it's a liquidity business. One part is can you predict FX rates? Not really, right? But what you can do is, based on the FX rates, you have historical data from your customers and clients of how they usually respond. So that is a model that we're building right now, so that based on these different factors like FX, seasonality, all these kind of things, we factor in so that we are able to most accurately project from our historical data to reflect how much we need to fund our partners so that we can optimize liquidity.
It sounds a lot more complicated than I imagined at first.
Yes.
For that second part. Okay.
And then the third part is based on that now. Okay, so we have no controllability over FX, but we have factored in so that we can project the most optimized flow. Then for FX, which we don't have control over, we want to minimize the risk. So we want to hedge all our FX as much as possible so that we have no cost in that.
So third part, if I'm understanding, is that the treasury business?
That's the
all of them are.
Yeah, all of them are, but 3 is more about FX hedging.
Yeah.
So automated, future, positions, changing positions, stuff like that. Second is regarding projections of the liquidity so that you can optimize it. And first is basically optimizing all the different webs of transactions coming in versus where we allocate that transaction.
How much of this whole process is manual and how much is automated? How much is the person sitting behind a computer?
Well, that's really I can't think of a number, but just fucking top of my head, maybe currently.
Currently, yeah.
Currently, I think it's for one, I think
you're building towards something that could automate it, right?
So the first part regarding allocation, I think only maybe 10% is manual, 90% automated. Number 2, I think is 20% automated and 80% manual. And 3, it just depends on the currency. For KRW-USD, we have 100% automated, but for the other currencies, barely. So we're still working on it.
Where does the bulk of your workforce work in? Are they programmers, developers, or are they forex traders? Huh?
I'm just kidding.
How big is your company now in headcounts?
I think in total about 200. I think of the 200, maybe I think 100 of them are not 100, maybe 60, 70 of them are marketing or CX or sales, so like revenue generation side. And then about the same number, like maybe 70 of them are product side. So product including product planning, front-end developers, back-end developers, infrastructure or info security, and UI UX designers. And then the rest of them are like all sorts of functions, like me, or we have business impact, business like UNSGD related industry. We have obviously finance, HR, and then ops, and compliance.
Yeah,
Lots of compliance.
Of course, it's a
We have like 15 compliance people.
financial services industry.
Yeah. Oh my god.
Give us perhaps an elevator pitch of SentBe. What does the company do? I think we've spoken quite long without giving a proper contact to your business.
SentBe provides a one-stop solution for individuals and businesses to do. Remember the value chain I talked about? For them to send from one country to another in the most fastest, safest, and affordable way.
So if you imagine a foreign worker in Korea wants to send his savings to his home country, let's say Philippines, he goes on your website. He inputs the amount he wants to send, look at the forex rate, send the money to the bank address, I guess the account address he's instructed to. So what happens after that? What happens between he send out the money to you and his target received the money? What's on the back end?
So what happens is, I think we just talked about it regarding the pre-funding, right? So we already had pre-fund yesterday or earlier today to our Philippines partner. So the moment that this guy requests a transaction, and then let's say he deposits that money into our Korean bank account, our company's bank account, right? In reality, it's a virtual account, so everything's automated. But the moment that he deposits that money, then we get an automated ping saying, okay, we got this money, which matches with this transaction, which initiates this transaction to be instructed to our Philippines partner. Pay out to, BDO, whatever bank account 1234, this amount, and then they pay out. And in the case of Korea to Philippines, it's like 10 seconds.
From you sending the message to the bank in Philippines.
From the user depositing that money into the virtual account into our ecosystem to his wife in the Philippines receiving that money in the bank account.
Okay. Let's say if he goes through the traditional channel, transfer through the bank, assuming he has a bank account, what's the process?
They would
How
have
long
to go
does it
to the thing about specifically about Korea. This is where we started, so I'll give you a little, just really short one. So they have to go physically to an offline branch of the bank, wait in line for about 3-4 hours. This is what happens to foreign migrant workers, like reality. 3-4 hours waiting in line. They deposit the money, and then they pay the SWIFT fees, the sender bank fees, and the beneficiary bank fees, which nobody knows, intermediary bank fees, which nobody knows how much. And then after 2-3 days, it reaches Philippines.
And what are all these intermediaries?
So if you go through the SWIFT, so the innate issue with the traditional system is that they have to go through the SWIFT network. This is like part of the not necessarily. Okay, they have to go to the SWIFT network and they have to process the transaction one by one. They cannot pool.
Okay.
They cannot pool because of compliance reasons.
So every
transaction has to go through a compliance route between banks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter how small it is.
Doesn't matter how small.
What's the average size for a transaction? Do you know for Swift?
For Swift?
And how much they charge usually?
How much they charge usually, I know. How much is the average transaction? I think is too diverse, but average cost is like maybe $50 for the Swift network itself.
Doesn't matter how large the transaction is.
It does matter, but I think it really differs.
Okay.
Yeah, it really differs.
So that's the first you pay $50, assuming to Swift organization.
So how the Swift works is kind of like a guarantee program. You know how it works, right?
I don't.
Oh, okay. So Swift is a company, but the Swift network is basically a guarantee program. So let's say Jay from Korea is trying to send to MC in Singapore into your DBS account, and I have a Korean account in Uri Bank. Uri Bank, I don't know, Yonsei University branch does not know MC's DBS branch in
Marina Bay,
right? Yeah. So they would say, okay, like Uri Bank headquarter, can you vouch for me? And then DBS, can you DBS headquarter vouch for me? And then they would go to like Bank of New York, can you vouch for me? And then they all say stamp, yeah, I vouch for that, I vouch for that, and then that's how the money actually flows.
What does vouch mean then? There.
Like in each of these Uri headquarter, Bank of New York in New York, DBS, and then DBS Marina Bay, they all have to approve and confirm that this transaction will not be jeopardized, or it's not a wrong transaction. It went through the right AML policies, and basically it's like a guarantee system. So all these banks who are vouching for the previous value chain's banks, those are called intermediary banks. And every time somebody even makes one move of their finger in any of the traditional system, that incurs labor costs. And labor costs translate into intermediary bank costs.
So these intermediary banks are the ones who like receive your money and pass it on to the next.
Only in a digital sense, yes.
Yeah.
The money itself goes from headquarter to headquarter, probably. Like, I'm actually not sure. Probably from the branch to Bank of New York to Marina to the branch. But however many intermediary banks there has to be between one branch to another in order for this whole vouching system to work, everybody pays a cut.
Yeah. It's like I'm referring you to someone I know because you want to transfer money to him.
Exactly.
It's like a LinkedIn connection system.
Exactly.
Why doesn't Uri Bank establish direct contact with DBS in Marina Bay?
To each of the banks in the world, I don't think that's international money transfer, especially in Korea, but most of the countries, it's not their primary business. Their business is loans.
Yeah.
Their business is interest rates. Their business is not making below 1% or below 2% on these fees.
Yeah. So it doesn't make sense for them to have like staff labor, but also I'm wondering what would it cost them to establish the contact? Why can't they just have the relationship to be able to directly send money from the Yonsei University branch to this DBS?
Ultimately, they need to be able to send the money itself.
Yeah.
Right? Like there has to be a cross-border money traveling railway. That's SWIFT.
Okay.
Yeah. So there are ways to have direct, network between, in this case, the Uri Bank branch and the DBS branch, but the upside and the strength of the SWIFT network is that they're like every single bank and branch is connected. So that network is so vast and powerful that they would, like the individual branches especially, but even any of the banks, they don't want to establish all these like direct lines. They just want to use the SWIFT network. A replacement of the SWIFT network is the most visible one. It seems like Visa, for example. They have their own network. They don't have to go through SWIFT. So that's another powerful. Like these are network infrastructure businesses.
So Swift, in a sense, is it's like Visa, Mastercard,
But for banks.
but for banks. Interesting. So you pay $50, let's say, to intermediaries, or is that to the Swift organization?
So usually from somewhere between $25 to $50 to the SWIFT network itself. The sender takes I think $5. Intermediary banks nobody knows because nobody knows how many intermediary banks there are. The sender banks usually doesn't know how much it's going to cost for the beneficiary bank.
Yeah.
So in total, so it usually costs about $50 to $80 for even an $80 transaction would cost them $80.
And where does the Swift network fee goes to?
To the SWIFT, the
Swift
foundation.
organization. That's such a lucrative, exploitive cash cow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Network business.
Yeah. And so I'm glad they're getting disrupted, let's say. Yeah.
For sure.
And you guys are taking their business.
Not really. So ultimately, when we do the pre-funding, we do go through the SWIFT.
Okay.
But I mean, in a P times Q. So
Right.
like
You're
Q
also
perspective.
increasing the quantity,
Yeah.
the volume of transactions because you increase the access. It's like financial inclusion in a
Something like
sense.
that, yeah.
Makes sense. Okay. I guess now I understand what SentBe is capable of and why it costs so much less in both like fees and also time for sending the money. And for this business model, it seems like it's really about scale. Because the more partners you have, the more volumes you transfer, right? The more you can lower the fees for the end customers. So how did you even get from 0 to 1 at the beginning? I mean, for this network business, it's always the hardest as a beginning. How do you convince the customers, the partners, the chicken egg problem? Yeah, all the beginning hard problems you faced. Was there anything particularly stood out to you from the early days of the startup?
So I think the hardest in our case, in the Korea's case, there were so we would map out our market segmentation to prioritize which markets we want to penetrate first, right? Like for example, Korea to China is the biggest. There are about 2 million Chinese or Chinese ethnic, Chinese Korean or Chinese living in Korea. So we say, oh, okay, this is the biggest market. Philippines, Indonesia, Vietnam, Thailand. These are others that are we didn't really have that much difficulty. For China, it's like a huge market, but we can't seem to penetrate it. One, it's very hard to find partners within China because I don't speak Chinese, and like linguistic barrier is such a big issue. I can find Chinese payout. We found Chinese private payout partners, so okay, fine. We're able to service it, but we cannot penetrate the market in Korea. Like, so what's the issue? And our biggest competitor, biggest substitute, we're substituting bags, right? But what we want, they think that we're competing against best, but we're not. Yeah. Our biggest substitute and biggest competitor is the black market. And coincidentally, our CEO Alex had a friend who was part of the largest heads of the black market in Korea, from Korea to China.
Let's just pause for a second. What's the black market? Describe the black market of money transfers from Korea to China.
So let's say you have a Korean bank account, right?
Yeah.
Let's say I'm in Korea and you need some and I need some I need some KRW and you need some CNY.
Yeah.
And I have CNY in China. You have KRW in Korea.
Yeah.
So I say, okay, you transfer locally for CNY, you to me, and then I give you the same amount in KRW. But when this happens between person to person, Depending on the regulation, it may or may not be legal. But when this becomes like a scheme, like all these money changers, right? They have offline shops in Korea. Pretty sure they do the same thing here too. But anyway, these offline shops, they take money, they take cash, KRW, and then write it down, and then send that equivalent converted CNY within China to whoever is instructed, right? And these are This is illegal activities based on currency regulated countries, in China, in Korea, in Vietnam, Indonesia even. This is not a regulated. This is an illegal activity. But this guy, the guy that I was talking about, who was part of one of the leaders of the scheme, this pyramid scheme, it's not like that kind of multi-level. It's not an MLM. It's a pyramid scheme of black market money changers, and he does like in the normal day, like somewhere between 5 to 10 million a day of exchange.
So Chinese people in Korea give him KRW,
$5 to $10 million worth a day,
and then tell him
average
the bank account in China he has to send to.
Yep.
Then he transfers that amount from his Chinese account.
Yep. Well, not him personally. It's a scheme, right? It's a company. This is a brotherhood. It's like mafia.
So you know someone in China who has the amount.
I went to meet him.
Yeah.
And he was how do you say, like a president of a bank, of a Korean, not a Korean, Chinese bank in China, in Qingdao.
So he's a Chinese person.
Yeah, he's completely Chinese.
Oh.
Yeah.
But it doesn't sound that bad if it's just taking advantage of a loophole in the system.
It's not a loophole, it's illegal, which is fine. I don't care if it's
He's
illegal.
not exploiting people.
He's not. He's actually finding a really good service. 5 to 10 million normal day, but doing like 100 million on a peak day, right? And this amount of volume and they are not only they're not doing people, they're doing businesses, like for businesses, like import export companies, all these, like, so they're able to match this in a $1 billion like scheme. That they're the volume that they touch gives them so much scalability that they almost don't have to put margin on it, especially from Korea to China, because China to Korea is a much bigger margin business. So Korea going to China, like, is below mid rate, so we couldn't really match that. So we couldn't penetrate it.
Okay. So I'm still trying to understand this guy. He has a bank account in China. When he sent the money in China, though, the banks will ask him, why are you doing this? Especially as he's sending it from a company account, right? So there must be some other setup of business transactions, faking the receipts, receivables, allowing him to legitimately transfer it through the actual real banking system.
I think partially yes, but mostly just cash.
Oh, he just takes the cash out.
Smuggle.
Oh,
he doesn't do it personally. He has all sorts of, like, everyone in the scheme is going back and forth, right? So every time any of them go, like, they hand carry and smuggle in a lot of cash.
So it doesn't go through the banking system.
Some do, and like partially, they take personal bank accounts, business bank accounts, all sorts of ways in order to make it work, and hundreds of bank accounts.
Why it wouldn't work? Why wouldn't the Chinese person in Korea just tell the bank in Korea to send money to Chinese bank? Why he has to go through the black market?
I'm sorry. What?
Why does he has to go through the black market to find this guy to exchange? Is it because of exchange rate? It's just saving fees?
Because the Korean, first of all, KRW is a currency regulated country.
Yeah.
So personally, they can only send up to $50,000.
Okay.
Per person. business-wise, there's so much. First of all, capital expenditure cannot. There's a limit on that, and there's so much proof that you have to documents that you have to prove.
Okay.
If it's not a capital expenditure, if it's like purchase of goods and services, there's the invoices, contracts, like all these information that you have to book.
So banks will ask you a lot of proof before you send the money through the banking system.
A lot of times they are sometimes, legitimate transactions, but sometimes just like, they're just trying to leak the money out.
Yeah.
Right. To save it or something. I don't know.
Okay.
But it's from a currency regulated country. So.
Okay. So you're in a way competing with the black market, but in certain markets like China, there's just no way.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about on the company side, as one of the first employees, a co-founder, what were the challenges in the early days? I mean, I was more thinking about going from growing the company to become the scale it has now. At first, nobody knows you. How do you win trust? I mean, this business, a lot of it depends on trust, right? I don't even know this website. Should I even send the money here? How did you even convince the first customers, the partners, the banking institutions to work with you?
I think it's a little bit different per counterpart as you that you enlisted. For clients, I think that's the most difficult. Customers. At first, I think the primary thing was our physical presence. So we were all out there every weekend, weekday. Having like skinship with our current and potential customers, so that they know that we're actually like existent, although we're a mobile or web app.
So you're actually on the streets talking to people. Yeah.
I play basketball with them, all the Filipinos in Korea, for sure. I'm not kidding.
Yeah. Okay.
And then nowadays it's a little bit different because once there's a license, that gives you a lot of legitimacy. Back then it was before this like cross-border payments was regulated in Korea, so it was kind of like an unofficial sandbox kind of thing. So it was very hard to convince our then clients or customers to start. But once they started and they get a taste of it, it's kind of hard to get out.
Yeah. Okay, so it didn't seem like that was a big part of your the problems you had to overcome. What would you say is the toughest obstacle so far?
I would say so. Earning the trust, I think that part, like, you just need to reach out to them and build a track record. What is the most difficult thing? I think the most difficult aspect. So people think like we call it fintech, right? Financial technology, but this is not a fintech. This industry is not a fintech. This is a regtech. This is regulatory technology. This is a regulatory industry. So like the reason why there's no single cross-border payment company, like even Wise, right? They're not dominant in all over the world, because you have to get licensed for whatever activity that you're doing in those specific jurisdictions. And it's impossible to have every single license in the whole world.
Yeah.
Wise doesn't have a license in Korea.
Yeah.
So I think the regulations, which was revised in 2017 for Korea, that's why we actually started the business. We knew that the regulation was going to change. We first started with cryptocurrency. We thought that the regulation would catch up. Didn't catch up with cryptocurrency, so we just launched without cryptocurrency, and ever since then we haven't. Regulation does not catch up to the businesses, and that basically pulls it down sometimes. I'm not dissing the regulatory bodies, but it's natural. MAS is a little bit different. MAS is so fast, and this for example, why are you laughing?
Because you're in Singapore, so it's,
I have to watch my mouth
too. Yeah.
No, but
Anyways.
for real, it's really different from.
Do you interact with regulators a lot?
Now I don't because now we have like different
You have all the
functions.
licenses.
No, but also the functions who do that, right?
Okay.
Like our chief compliance officer knows much more about regulations and compliance than me, so I wouldn't talk to him as.
When did you have to deal with them?
So the Singapore license, I got the license. In Korea, I was part of it for
Yeah.
getting the Korean license. So like back then.
And how would you compare the process of getting the license in Korea versus Singapore?
It's too sensitive, so I cannot say. But just in a nutshell, I would say
Not the technicality of the process, but how it feels as an applicant to back up your testimonial of like MAS being one of the most efficient.
so. MAS, they know the players, they know the industry, they know what you are trying to do. Although it's like all kinds of different business models, and they basically know what the risks are, and based on your application, they know what to look for. The Korean regulators, they're playing catch up, like 3 years, and I can't really I can't really blame them because it's a rotation program. So every like 2 years they have to change, they get re-educated. So we have to educate them on not only like this business model that we're trying to like submit to them, but we have to educate them on the business itself, the industry, everything. So it's kind of frustrating. And then if you think about like what kind of authority that they have on implementing or like affecting our business, like everyday business, what solutions we can use, even like that kind of thing. Like it's just, I think they need to be better.
So every 2 years, do you have to renew your license?
No. We just it's just like the people in charge change every 1 or
Okay.
2 years, and then they like completely change the process, and they have no idea what they're doing.
And they
Oh my
ask
God,
you like,
need
hey,
to scratch this out.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Oh jeez, that's funny. And it's like fucking 1%, 1% of my fucking anger.
that. Oh, okay.
Anyway, in a nutshell,
Yeah.
for example, some of the regulations in Korea, there were loopholes or not robust enough sometimes that it affects things like I think I told you some other time, but they suddenly categorized cross-border payments into a certain financial institution body like group, which could not be a investee of certain LPs, certain like funds. So we had signed an investment agreement, the term sheet. Money was supposed to come in like 2 weeks later, and then suddenly they saw this like like overlooked loophole of the regulation, which voided our investment. And it's just like, it just doesn't make sense, right? These little details that like, how can regulators do this? But anyway, things like that, if things like that happen, is kind of frustrating, right? But anyway, there's a lot that I feel like there's a lot more collaboration in terms of regulators versus companies they have to do in Korea.
Drink some water. Yeah. I think we should probably wrap it up soon.
Yeah.
But let's end it on you personally as entrepreneur, as a CEO. George, what's your official title?
I'm managing director of APEC, co-founder and chief business officer.
Okay. How would you describe your leadership style, and how has it changed over time? I think I know you look for like efficiency. Do you value that as part of your team's KPIs, or how do you, I guess, manage a team as a leader? Do you have any philosophies? best practices?
Damn. So my value, professionally and personally, is actually, as you said, efficiency. I like to strive efficiency. The style of which, especially professionally, then you want to implement efficiencies in terms of process, goal setting and achievement, things like that, right? I think before, I was too Machiavelli, my style of leadership, where I thought that, and I was probably right, of the most efficient way to implement or achieve said goals. Versus, I feel like that's short-term efficiency, but in the long-term efficiency, like people are whether stressed or tired or scared, whatever. But in the long term, it's more efficient to cater or package your message so that that person buys into that goal or get on the same boat, so that overall we're going towards that value of efficiency. But like if they're on the same page, if they have ownership of that boat or that path, then like the general long term becomes much more efficient. So that's how I changed.
So you're becoming more strategic.
I think I'm becoming more. I want to be more motivational. Is I think the right word. Like I want to I'm not like inspiration to people. That's not what I'm trying to say. I want to have this. I want people to have the same motivation as me.
Yeah.
That we go to the same direction.
Yeah, it's kind of understanding what works with them rather than imposing your will.
Exactly. Yeah, I kind of learned it, not the hard way, but the hard way.
Explain that. I mean, you can't say it without leaving it on a cliffhanger. Let's end it on that story.
So, somewhere in 2018, I headed multiple functions, about 3 functions. One was business development, which is partnerships and global expansion. Second was marketing, which was the biggest, and then customer support. So I was doing 3 functions. I'm a guy who wants efficiency. I just I had no time. Like people were lining up to speak to me until like 11 p.m. every single day, right? So I just have to they bring in something. It's not it just doesn't make sense or it's not efficient. I would just be I have to give them the answer, and then this would be repetitive. And every time they bring the wrong structure, or marketing, promotion event, or whatever targets, then I would just have to fix for them because that's more efficient. But 6 months later, it's the same. They don't bring the right one, right? So 6 months later, I was still busy, hyper busy, so stressed out. I was getting losing hair and shit. Oh my god. So. But coincidentally, that was the time when that investment shit broke loose, and we had to scale down from 80 people to 20. And out of the 60 people, I think 30, 40 of them were working for me in the marketing or CX. So once that, I think that experience with the marketing, that huge organization back then, it was huge for me back then, and that learning kind of now leads me to giving more autonomous or motivation so that they can build their own OKRs, their career paths, whatever. But it's less about me telling them the answer, but more about just being the catalyst, I guess. My voice is going away.
Yeah, I think we should probably wrap it up here then. All right, thank you so much, Jay, for coming on the show, and I hope your voice gets better and you can quit smoking.